The Florida Panthers made it all the way to the Stanley Cup Final last year, but can they take that last step and win their first Stanley Cup? Armando Velez of Locked On Florida Panthers joins us to talk about the offseason and the season ahead next on the Locked On NHL Podcast.
You're Locked On NHL, your daily podcast on the National Hockey League. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome, everybody, to the Monday edition of the Locked On NHL Podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to thank everyone who makes Locked On NHL your first listen every day. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts so you can get new episodes as soon as they drop. And now you can also hear us on SiriusXM on the SXM app. Just do a search for Locked On NHL. It is my pleasure to welcome back to the show the host of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, Armando Velez. And Armando, we had you on all spring long, that beautiful long playoff run. It's great to have you back. It's been an eventful offseason for the Florida Panthers so far.
Yeah, first of all, Gil, welcome back for also you on the national show. Glad to hear your voice once again and also to be a guest on the national show as well. But yeah, one of the shortest off seasons that the Florida Panthers have had in their franchise's history, if you exclude everything with COVID and everything with 2020, 2021 and all that stuff, when you're thinking about a typical season, and then with the Florida Panthers, because they didn't win a single game in the 96 final, getting one, it was already considered the most successful season that the Florida Panthers have ever had. And for me personally, covering this team, it's great to have a short offseason because as this episode drops, we're 52 days away from the Florida Panthers taking the ice against the Minnesota Wild on opening night.
Not that you're counting or anything. So
yeah.
No, that's great. A lot of changes this offseason on the blue line. Some injuries, some free agent defections, some new players coming in. Talk to me about your feelings about the moves that have been made this offseason and how good this defense core can be this season.
Well, to start off, the Florida Panthers are going to be without the likes of Brandon Montour and Aaron Ekblad to start the season. It's funny because Bill Zito actually went on the Sirius XM NHL Power Play show last week and spoke about the updates, but he honestly said a whole bunch of nothing, which is something I talked about on my show. He said, could it be 1 month? No. Could it be 4 months? Probably not. Those are his exact words. So we didn't really get an answer based on that. And Brandon Montour has also posted some videos on his rehab. So he looks to be on track after that torn labrum. Aaron Ekblad has been quiet on the socials, so we have no idea what's going on with him. But the guys that they brought on the blue line, a guy in Oliver Ekman-Larsson who didn't have the best year in Vancouver and who's struggled in the last few years, but he is a guy who's hungry to make it on a long playoff run with a team coming off the Stanley Cup Final, because he's only made the playoffs once, if you don't count the bubble season where they advanced to after the qualifying round. He's only been to the Western Conference Final, and that was more than 10 years ago for Oliver Ekman-Larsson. He's a leader as well, and he's a guy who could quarterback possibly a power play. Chances are he might be the quarterback on the Florida Panthers power play to start the year, him or Gus Forsling for that. So they're going to look to him to be playing the top pair minutes at the beginning of the season as well. And also there's guys who were victims of cap crunches as well, or roster crunches as well. Mike Riley only played 10 games with the Boston Bruins last year. This is an opportunity for him. And with the Florida Panthers now having freed up cap space after the majority of Keith Yandel's buyouts off the books, they don't feel as much of a squeeze. They don't have to start with 20 players on opening night like they did last year. But still, the flat cap is still very real with this team. They also brought Nico Mikkola to the mix as well on the blue line, and they were never going to sign Radko Gudas to a 4-year deal. It's someone who's going to be on the tail end of his 30s with that. So you had to bring guys who are hungry, and also guys who have a little bit of beef, because let's be real, the Florida Panthers kind of got bullied in the Stanley Cup Final. There's a big major size advantage and talent advantage as well for the Vegas Golden Knights against the Panthers. So Bill Zito's objective was to get a little bit of beef on their blue line, especially.
Well, let's see how that ends up panning out. Another area that's a little bit of a question mark is the goaltending situation. I mean, we know Sergei Bobrovsky is going to be the starter and the number one guy, but Spencer Knight back from his time off. What role do you expect him to play, and how do you expect the goaltending starts and games to break down this season?
Well, good news for Spencer Knight is that he is off the players assistance program. He was actually participating in development camp for the Panthers. He did not play in the scrimmage, but he got a special exemption from the NHL to participate and at least get into a hockey setting again. And for Spencer Knight, just listening to him talk in the media availabilities, he looks like to have like a bigger sense of purpose, not just hockey, but as far as life as well. So it's very easy to cheer for someone like Spencer Knight on and off the ice, but Anthony Stolarz coming into the mix as well. They realized how important it was to have that third goalie on the roster. We saw it with Alex Lyon last year, who earned himself a contract with the Detroit Red Wings this offseason, but they knew that they were not keeping Alex Lyon around. So thank you for your services, Alex Lyon, and getting the Panthers to the playoffs. But they had to try to find somebody, and Anthony Stolarz has never played a full season. He has 81 games under his belt. So the Anaheim Ducks, they gave up 4 more shots average per game than the next worst team in the NHL. So I want to think that for Anthony Stolarz being in a better situation, that he's going to be able to succeed as well. And for Sergei Bobrovsky, here's the thing. Every time Sergei Bobrovsky has been tested as far as his starting crease being in jeopardy or someone else coming in, he's always answered the bell and always responded back. It happened with Chris Drieger. It happened with Spencer Knight even after he finished the Tampa series as well, having his best season in the regular season in the President's Trophy season. Alex Lyon as well, starting the first 3 games of the first round. And then Sergei Bobrovsky, even though he didn't have a good start to the postseason, really was lights out towards the end of that run as well for the Panthers. So, and this guy is the first one in, last guy out for the Cats, and seen it even on nights that he doesn't start. And we're going to media availabilities. He's in their gym constantly doing stretches, working out. So you can't. It's hard. You can't criticize Sergei Bobrovsky's work ethic, and it seems that after the way it ended as far as the last game, giving up 9 goals, you could only imagine how hungry Sergei Bobrovsky will be going into this season. Will the results pan out the way we want? Hopefully, but it's a short off season. We have to acknowledge that as well. So we don't know. We also don't know how to predict where Sergei Bobrovsky is going to be.
Are you concerned that the team as a whole may have a little bit of a lag early in the season because the off season was so short?
It's funny because actually the way I think about it is because Paul Maurice and Matthew Tkachuk have been on the team for now a whole calendar year, and you're not starting to get to know people coming into your franchise, chances are, even with the injuries, there's a chance that the Florida Panthers could actually have a better start this coming season than they did all of last year, when they were starting to get used to the new system under Paul Maurice, because it wasn't that fast-paced type of offense that they had prior to Coach Maurice being here. And I think that's a very important part of it too, the head coach and all. And I think that that it's a strong possibility, especially because talking about the blue liners in the beginning of the segment, having a lot to prove. And also, here's one guy that I haven't mentioned, Evan Rodriguez, a late bloomer in his career, someone who played with Sidney Crosby and Nathan McKinnon. He could very well go on that top line with Alexander Barkov, and a guy who could score on the power play, probably a guy who's going to be on power play too as well, and a guy who's incredible on the forecheck as well, who could create those turnover opportunities as well. So that is as far as one of the best additions that the Florida Panthers did make this offseason. Evan Rodriguez is definitely up there. And I think that it's going to help the Panthers stay afloat before the guys are ready to come back, especially on the blue line.
Makes sense, and we'll see how that pans out. I know you'll be on top of it all season long. Armando, why don't you tell our viewers and our listeners where they could find the podcast and where they could find you on social media?
They can find me on X at MondoMan12. They can follow the show account at LO_FLA Panthers at X and on Instagram as well. And they can also follow the show anywhere you listen to podcasts and on YouTube as well.
All right, Armando, thank you so much. Always a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you so much, Gil.
Today's episode is brought to you by AG1, a product I literally use every day. I started taking AG1 because I wanted a supplement that didn't require me to take a whole bunch of different pills and would meet all of my nutritional needs. I usually have AG1 in the morning before starting my day, and it gives me energy and makes me feel better before I even begin to work. Look, AG1 gives you 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food source, superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens to help you start your day right. And it supports your gut health, nervous system, immune system, energy, recovery, focus, aging, all these things. So if you are looking for a comprehensive solution to what you need from your supplemental routine, then try AG1 and get a free 1-year supply of vitamin D and 5 free AG1 travel packs with your first purchase. Go to drinkag1/NHL network. That's drinkag1/NHL network. Check it out.